Go into the platform a little bit. Like we have, we host LND nodes, and everything is essentially encrypted to use the password that you set on the node, so we don't have access to see kind of what's happening in the node. And then additionally, like LND has remote signing now, so you can do remote key management. You can get really fancy with how you do keys and things like that. But essentially, yes, we don't have access into the funds on the node, and especially in hosting BTCPay Server. Kind of the way that that's set up is it's basically a cold, not cold storage, but there's no hotkeys on the BTCPay Server itself. So if we essentially got some kind of court order to shut you down, we can't freeze your money. We can just stop you from accepting new money, but we could never actually take your funds from you or anything like that.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Changing the Tide. I'm your host, John Crabtree. Today, I have the pleasure of having on Graham Krizek, CEO and founder of Voltage. They're doing some awesome stuff to help scale the Lightning ecosystem. Everything from being able to spin up your own Bitcoin and Lightning nodes to easily connecting a BTCPay server, connecting it to your node. One of their most exciting products and probably most used is Flow, and that takes advantage of Lightning's pool, and that allows you to really easily find a market for liquidity for your Lightning node for channels, and do that very quickly within, let's say, potentially even less than minutes. And so exciting getting into the LSP, Lightning Service Provider ecosystem as well. But I think you're really going to love this. We even dive in the second half really into privacy, non-KYC, why they're important, how Voltage helps along these lines as well. So let's get going. Graham, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
I'm very excited to have you to talk about Voltage, as you are the CEO and founder. As we start, I'll go ahead with the Clark Moody Bitcoin dashboard. And this is pretty apropos for what you guys do. As we share, for sure. We've got 14,728 reachable Bitcoin nodes as of right now. We're starting at block height 728,977 for posterity's sake. People can look back on this time. 8,200, a little over 8,200 of those reachable nodes are running Tor. So over 55%, almost 56%. And then we have, as far as Lightning nodes, we have 3,553 Bitcoin, just a little over that, locked up in the Lightning network, and 20,000 total nodes, and 84,831 total channels. So, and Graham and his crew at Voltage are contributing to that. So let's talk about what you guys do. Graham, tell us about Voltage.
Yeah, sure. That sounds good. So Voltage is a Bitcoin infrastructure provider. So really what we try and do is we are trying to enable individuals and businesses to use Bitcoin in more of their products and services that they're creating. So really that comes down to hosting services today of Bitcoin nodes, Lightning nodes, BTCPay Server, kind of all these different tools that you need to interact with Bitcoin in one way or the other. We help people, get on board, quicker and easier, and make that process much smoother than it would be doing it yourself. And kind of thinking longer term, we're really just trying to create a platform, really to make the Lightning Network a extremely usable platform for a lot of people to come and develop on and use in their everyday businesses. It's obviously usable today. We have what it was $157 million locked into it. Obviously usable, but there's still a lot of things that we think that we can solve and really make that process a lot easier. So really, that's what we're trying to do is bring the Lightning Network to the billions of people in the world.
Yeah, it sounds like you're trying to. So Lightning Network was a scalability option, a layer 2 on top of the Bitcoin network. You're trying to scale this layer 2 to even more businesses and individuals.
Yeah, exactly. And really, we're very focused on Lightning. We do obviously other things with Bitcoin nodes and BTCPay Server, these other pieces that kind of tie into Lightning in some way. But we're very focused on Lightning because we see it as the big opportunity for Bitcoin to reach the greater population. But then additionally, the Lightning Network is a very different way of using it. Like, when you think about on-chain Bitcoin, you can kind of send to an address at any time and it will get there as long as it's broadcasted and mined and all of those things. It'll get there. Where Lightning is you have to be online to receive. You have to have channels established. It's just a very different environment compared to on-chain Bitcoin, and that poses a lot of problems or challenges that people have to deal with. And so we're trying to remove a lot of that complexity, or give people tools to go and solve all of these kinds of different things you have to deal with when you're using the Lightning Network.
For sure. One of those, not problems, I don't want to call it, but hurdles to overcome would be the liquidity issue, right? Having liquidity in channels. And so how are you guys helping to jump that hurdle for the average person or business?
Yeah, for sure. Right now we have it's really the biggest thing that we have out today is a product called Flow. And what Flow is, it's kind of a reseller for Lightning Labs' Pool product. And just to describe that briefly, Pool from Lightning Labs it's an auction service where essentially a person that has excess liquidity, some Bitcoin that you just have sitting around, you can put it on this auction service and say, hey, I will open up a channel to you for X number of sats, and you can pay me, a small percentage of the amount. And so the people that have idle Bitcoin have an incentive to lease it out into these channels. And then people that need liquidity can, pay a small fee to get the inbound liquidity that you need to, accept payments for your business or whatever it is. And so what we do is we are kind of a layer on top of that makes it easier for people to use the Pool product. For anyone that's hasn't used Pool, there's some assumptions that it kind of makes of, like, you already have to have a channel established. You have to lock in Bitcoin for a certain amount of time. There's things that make it a little bit difficult to use. And so what we did is we leveraged what are called sidecar channels through Pool, where we can basically, you just come to our website, put in an amount in the site, pay the invoice, and then you just can claim, you get a ticket back. You go and claim this ticket on your node at home or on Voltage or wherever. And so it really simplifies this whole big liquidity thing down to an order form that everyone is very familiar with, of enter in how many sats you want. Here's a ticket, go and claim it on your node, and then it's open to you. So it's definitely working towards making the liquidity issue a much simpler thing, where you can just kind of fill out a form and the channel's open. And then, as we move along, there's definitely more opportunity there around just, automated LSP services and things like that. There's other people that are doing, doing LSP type services, and, those are great. And I think that there's a huge market for just liquidity service in general, whether it's just, channel opens or just helping facilitate it. Obviously it's, like I said, one of those challenges in the Lightning Network, and I think that there's a lot of opportunity to solve one of those problems.
That's awesome. Two things that for maybe some of the beginner listeners, you mentioned LSPs or Lightning service providers, and then sidecar channels. Could you unpack both of those just a little bit for any noobs who might be?
Yeah, for sure. I'm obviously so ingrained in this. Sometimes I just start throwing around words that maybe need a little explanation. LSP is actually kind of almost I don't want to say a debated term right now, but I think it's kind of finding its what exactly it means. But historically, when you say LSP, it usually means Lightning Service Provider, which has always been to be a liquidity service. So Breeze opens up channels into everyone that runs a Breeze node, things like that. So it's always been thought of as, Lightning Service Provider being a liquidity source. But really, if you think about the definition of a Lightning Service Provider, I think that it's much more general than just liquidity. Voltage is a Lightning Service Provider by hosting nodes and making it easier for you to run a node. So I think that definition is changing over time. But I think for my previous comment, LSP was really around the liquidity piece of it. And then sidecar channels. So sidecar channels are something that is unique to the Pool product, that essentially means that I can participate in that auction service and buy a channel in the auction, but I don't have to buy the channel for me. I can buy it for someone else. And so what it really is it's a ticket that when I buy a channel on the auction service, I'm not necessarily buying, the channel directly into my node. I'm buying a ticket that I can go give to someone else, and then they can go and claim that ticket and have the channel open to them. So it's just a way of essentially buying channels on this auction service for other people.
Yeah, almost in the way that let's say a company like Azteco creates a voucher that you can then go claim, like Bitcoin on chain or Lightning. You're doing this for people when it comes to channels on the Lightning Network.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's definitely correct, and it's a very cool feature of it, and it obviously enables a lot of things. Just like Azteco is nice to like give out Bitcoin to people at a conference or something. It's a very similar thing.
That's really cool. Well, awesome. Okay, so Lightning payment infrastructure, obviously, it's different than what you were talking about on chain. Which is way different than like payment infrastructure in the legacy systems. So maybe unpack a little bit. You talked about kind of having to be online 24/7, right? Your channel has to be online in order to receive. So, but what are some advantages of that, like comparatively?
Yeah, so I think that just looking at it broadly from the difference between legacy financial systems and Lightning, it's really so there's a lot of, I'll say like a positive for the traditional financial system is that there is already a lot of tools out there that help you use it, like Stripe or something. Like you want to accept credit cards online, you don't have to go and talk to Visa and actually like figure out how to get into their network and do all these things. It's there's a lot of on-off ramps like that, things that help you in that way, and those are being created on the Lightning Network. So we will, I think, even the playing field as far as like those tools go and ability to hook in to easy kind of plug and play solutions. But then additionally, I think that some of the advantages of the Lightning Network is obviously there's a lot of them, but it's around like the transactions per second. You can actually do far more transactions per second than like a Visa network on the Lightning Network, because it's really there's not some one big pipe that everything's going through. It's just peer to peer, right? So you can you're only limited to your peers. And so you can really, the scale that this can reach is honestly far wider than a Visa network. Then, I mentioned peer-to-peer already. It's obviously one of the great advantages of Bitcoin in general is the fact that it is peer-to-peer and you can transact with someone directly and you don't have to get permission from anyone else, and you don't have to, you can't be banned or shut off from this service. You're always able to transact. And then additionally, it's the instant finality, right? So when you send a Lightning payment and it gets settled, like it's done essentially. Like that's it. There's with the Visa network and all these other more different networks, it's not instant finality. You're basically there's credit involved. There's all these things for it to actually like reach your bank account and be cash that you can ultimately like spend into place. So the instant finality is additionally a very a big positive for the Lightning Network. And I'll say one more that is around the programmability. When you think about things like micropayments or streaming sats, like all of these things are really when it boils down to it, it's just the programmability of Lightning, where you can really do machine to machine payments far easier and do transactions that are less than a penny. It's like you can't even how are you going to charge your credit card for less than a penny kind of thing. And it really enables just the payment network to be far more ingrained into our experiences on the internet than is possible with a Visa network or something like that. So there's a lot of positives to the Lightning Network in Bitcoin, obviously, but those are some of like the big ones that I see now.
I love it. Yeah, and you talk specifically about streaming Bitcoin, so I want to get to value for value because I know you guys have been contributing to that space. So thank you, because I benefit from that. Yeah. But the before I go there, there's been a lot of I don't want to say friendly fire, but they're on Twitter, the Twitterverse and everything around Lightning implementations. So I was wondering for Voltage specifically, which implementations do you guys currently support? And do you have plans for, if you don't support all of them, do you have plans to like add as time goes on?
Yeah, definitely. I think on the implementation side, right now we just host L&D nodes. So that's how it is today. Over time, we'll definitely add support for other ones. There's just some like technical hurdles with some of them that we're just kind of working to overcome and whatnot. But ultimately, we'll host more options, and we'll probably have some more custom solutions as well in our product roadmap. So really, I think that this kind of question really boils down to like us at Voltage and kind of like how we like to think about things and like the network in general is we want to be a platform that gives you the option to choose. You can, we want to give you LND, C Lightning, our own service, whatever it is, and you can choose what is best for what you're doing. Same thing with like, I think that, there's obviously like contention or, arguments or whatever around like Bolt 12 versus LNURL, like all of these things. Like really what we want to be as a platform is give you the tools to do whatever it is you want to do. Honestly, give you the tools to choose whether you want Bolt 12 or C Lightning or LND or whatever it is. And so that's kind of the way that we like to think about it as a platform, is really just creating a robust platform that's easy to use, that gives people all these options, and then the users can decide. I think that it's one of those things where the market will decide itself and what people want to use and what is best.
That's cool. Yeah, because when it comes down to it, it seems like Pool was just like probably one of the most simple direct to market implementations that you could start with to help people, is my guess. Because I'm not a developer myself, but I've heard that it is very developer friendly, the LND ecosystem. So
yeah, I mean it is, and that's the reason why we started with LND initially is really because of that. It has the most robust ecosystem around tooling and services and applications that kind of integrate with it, and that you can leverage. So that was a big plus for us as we were looking at kind of the first implementation that we wanted to bring onto the platform. And so like inside of Voltage, we host like things like Thunder Hub dashboards. We'll host more things, and so it's really easy for us to just kind of offer these different apps and services that connect into LND, because it's all kind of it all talks the same language essentially.
Yeah. Thoughts on I didn't really prepare you for this question, but I've had Connor Okus from the Spiral team and John Cantrell, who spun up Sensei, which is built on LDK. So I'd be interested if you have any thoughts on just kind of BDK, LDK. Have you dug into those deeply, or just been too busy?
Yeah, I mean, me myself, like I used to be an engineer. I'm doing less engineering as I move along to be more of a CEO type. But I definitely have been like keeping my eye on BDK, LDK, Sensei, all of these things. I mean, I think that it's a great time in the network, and that there's a lot of advancements happening in both protocol implementations, all of these things. So we're definitely keeping our eye on what is valuable and like offers the best solution to a problem, but then also like what do our users want, like what are kind of their requests, and what do they want to see in the platform. So with that, we're definitely like we're big observers of like everything that's going on in the Lightning Network, and so we've probably like dug in and researched just about everything. And then as far as like incorporating it into Voltage and things like that, it's really just a matter of kind of thinking through what makes sense and ultimately what our users are asking for, and what are the problems that we're going to solve, like immediately and longer term, and how do these tools play into that. So we've definitely been looking at it essentially.
Yeah. I had a Twitter exchange with Nate who does the This Week in Lightning show with Nifty. And he was talking about how he's already played with Sensei. And I was like, you guys are on it. Nice work. So. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's, I'll even say like, just besides, us as a company, like what I love about our team, and I think that we have some incredible engineers, that everyone's just very interested in Lightning in general. So they're all very eager to play around with new technology or experiment or build things. Today when we're recording this is Friday, and we have something that's called FOSS Fridays, where essentially it's every other Friday. The whole team, we basically don't do any Voltage work, and everyone just picks an open source project and just works on it. And that's cool. So it's a great opportunity for people to explore these new things, what's out there, contribute back to open source, and really just, there's such a hunger inside of Voltage to work on open source and advance like the network in general. So it gives people the opportunity to kind of explore these other things. So that's been a great kind of program that we started here recently.
That's awesome. Speaking of, you guys recently, I guess it was maybe a couple months ago, raised, was it a seed series or
yes,
a seed round? I mean,
yeah.
Okay, cool. And then it sounds like you made a tweet the other day that you've kind of filled up all the positions you were looking to fill. So congrats on the hiring.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. Yes, it's been just really insane, the amount of like applicants we've received and the amount of people that are interested in like working on Bitcoin. Like there's obviously, some people like within the Bitcoin ecosystem that, applied, but there's a lot of people that were outside of the Bitcoin ecosystem that, that are applying that really want to get involved. And so I think that was, just awesome to see the amount of people that are wanting to enter the space. And so that's also, a great thing for companies that are, hiring or building on Bitcoin and Lightning is that, there's a large candidate pool out there that are wanting to get involved. And so, it's great to see the ecosystem growing like that and a lot of like new entrants.
I think there's going to be a massive exodus from the non-Bitcoin space here over the next few years. So
yeah, for sure. I agree.
Nice. Okay. So let's get to it because I talked about it a little bit earlier, but the burgeoning value for value model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And your guys' support of that. There was a tweet going around. I don't know if it was from Bobby, but I think someone from within Voltage tweeted out some interesting stats that you guys see internally around value for value podcasting 2.0. Do you want to speak on that a little bit?
I don't know what tweet you're talking about, or like I don't think
okay.
Can think of like the metrics like specifically or what.
Okay.
If you want to pull it up, I could maybe speak to it more. But so for just in general, like for value, we work with people like Adam Curry, and the Podcast Index folks, Dave Jones. We work with Fountain, Oscar at Fountain, Tim and Ellen Pay. Yeah. Like we're basically we host with Sphinx Chat and Zion and all of these things. So we're very ingrained in the value for value space, and so it's been really awesome to build with a lot of these folks and really kind of push the boundaries on what's possible with Lightning and really kind of come up with these unique use cases. So it's been really exciting to see that, and I think it's been a great learning experience for a lot of people on where is Lightning succeeding and where is it not succeeding, and how are we going to fix that or adapt or whatever it is. So it's been really exciting to be working with those folks and really kind of powering this new use case.
Yeah, it's been fun to be a part of. From the Podcasting 2.0 board, weekly board meetings on their podcast to working with Oscar at Fountain, and to see you guys kind of contributing to that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Wanted to get your opinion because I was on Stacker News the other day, and there was someone who wrote something around how they feel like the value for value model is has a fatal flaw or something along those lines. And really, it came down to this: was they felt like my opinion is that we're just so early that people can't see they can't see the paradigm shift happening yet. But it was essentially coming down to the fact that why would I stream sats to someone, and what is value? And maybe Adam doesn't understand value for value, because it's like if I gave the full value to someone of Bitcoin, it might bankrupt me, because what if I learn something new that makes me a ton of Bitcoin in the future? And so I don't know. Do you want to maybe speak to just the idea of value for value and how you see it, the path forward in terms of growth?
Yeah, no, totally. I think that that's what's been interesting about, I think that the space in general, but I think it's really manifested itself in the value for value kind of model, is that there's a lot of people that we come up with all these things, and then people kind of debate whether it's the right thing or not, and they kind of it's exciting to see. But I think that for value specifically, I think that there's the technical side of it, and then there's the more monetary side of it, or whatever you want to call it. But for the technical side of it, I I think people have some qualms about, sending lots of payments like once a minute, like kind of like spamming the network almost, things like that. And I think that there's some validity there that maybe that I think Breeze is the one that does it, where they like kind of pool the sends of like, if you're listening for a minute, they kind of like pause and then they send one payment a minute for like that amount that you listen. So I think there's just some optimizations that can be done on a lot of those things. I think that that's in general in the Lightning Network. A lot of people nitpick at these things where it's like, there's optimizations that can be done. I think that you're exactly right that, we're early in this. And so maybe the current iteration of value for value isn't the perfect one, and, we'll enhance it as we go, things like that. And on the more like monetary side, I mean, I think that I understand of like, I mean, it's like kind of the spending Bitcoin problem of like, why would you spend Bitcoin? If it's going to go up forever, why would you spend it? I mean, there's like validity there, but I do value for value. I like listen on Fountain and all of these things. And I'll buy $10 worth of Bitcoin to put into Fountain and then like listen to it. And I just know that, I don't have the anticipation. I do that knowing that I am transferring value. And then additionally, this isn't possible in anything else. Like you can't, like if you wanted to replace this with something else, you can't. The only way to replace it is to add a middleman, and then what's different? Like there's, this is just legacy stuff all over again. So, I think that, Lightning is the only platform that can really solve this. And I think it solves it well. I mean, sure, we can adapt on the technology. And I think that, with the value issue there, I think can be solved in a lot of different ways of, your own conversions, or, you don't need to be sending out of cold storage, things like that. I think that there's some optimizations that can be done there. There's people like talking about like doing like stable coins on Lightning and all of these other like the dollars on Lightning and all of these kinds of newer ideas, which I mean that could drastically change like the models as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. So this was it. It was actually it was a retweet from the @voltage_cloud Twitter handle. The podcast, the @podcastindex.org is doing numbers. Value for value on Lightning is heating up, and so it said total podcasts in the index 4,243,830. And shows published in the last 90 days 502,299, and then it has like 3 days, 10 days. So that's pretty significant. Because all of those 4 million plus have the potential to receive Lightning payments from their audiences.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think that we feel like the number of podcasters that are enabling the value for value is increasing. But if you look at it on like, the global scale of podcasting, it's very, very small. So I think it's a huge opportunity to get more people involved in Bitcoin and Lightning through this use case. And, people like Fountain are making it really easy to like kind of get involved, where you don't necessarily have to know all of the ins and outs of Lightning to do it, which is like, that's kind of the ideal situation, I think. So, I mean, it's just exciting to see the growth that has occurred, but then also the growth, like the potential growth that, that could happen with all these other podcasts.
It's amazing. Outside of value for value, tell us some more things, because you guys are clearly entrenched in that side of things. What are some other areas for, let's say, untapped at the moment that you guys are potentially looking to tap into? Of course, you probably can't share everything. Some of it might be trade secrets, but any thoughts from you there?
Yeah, I mean, like for like us as a platform, like we're working on a lot of different things, and we have some like actually in Bitcoin 2022 conference, which is in like a couple of weeks or so, we'll have a few announcements at the conference. So for us specifically, just wait for that, and you can hear new things there. But for Lightning in general, I mean, I think it kind of goes back to what I commented on earlier of we just really want to enable all the use cases, like whatever people want to create, we want to enable. And so that's kind of, I guess, our take and like how that we approach that. But I mean, I think that there's a lot of opportunity in bringing the Lightning Network into like current like Web 2 infrastructure. So just kind of getting rid of paywalls and like, subscriptions or like more usage-based payments, like those kinds of things. I think that there's a lot of opportunity in just kind of rebuilding the existing internet in a better way. And then, maybe we'll have more insights into go build like kind of brand new things on Lightning, like the Sphinx chats and DLCs on Lightning and all this other kind of crazier stuff. So that's kind of what gets me excited is that there's a lot of opportunity in just the current internet that we can really fix. I mean, when you think about like the global payments, like, network, I mean, like there's trillions of dollars that happen just like kind of the general payments. And that's like a huge market to go and, upset. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in doing just like, let's take what we got and like make it 1,000 times better by integrating Lightning. And then, I think that we'll have a lot of opportunity after that to create new things that are, far out.
That's awesome. Yeah. Hey, DLCs, you just mentioned that. Can you discrete log contracts? What's the big what's the big value there?
So I'm not probably the greatest person to talk about DLCs. I just haven't read as much as I should on it. But I mean, ultimately what DLCs like enables a lot of things, but it's really can do things like wagering. So it's like doing like betting of like, you can bet with someone on like the output of, a football game or something without giving up your Bitcoin. So if you wanted to do that today, I mean, you probably have to deposit it into some like, middleman that holds it for both of you or something like that. But it does this non-custodially. So it's like an on-chain enforced, mechanism. And so it opens up a lot of, use cases for, things like betting, but then it also opens you up to do things like non-custodial, like interest earning. So being able to earn interest on your Bitcoin without giving it up into like, a block fight or something like that. And then there's like, DLCs on Lightning open up even more kind of programmability on the Lightning network where you can do, just kind of more things outside of just the sending and receiving. You can do a little bit more of those like contract based things. So, I think when you start talking about like smart contracts and all that stuff, people kind of go to the Ethereum like mindset and like all of those things. And it's like, maybe there's some comparisons there, but it just enables more programmability on top of Bitcoin and the Lightning network.
Yeah, so it takes a programmable money and makes it even more. So
yeah,
it just gives it more flexibility and power.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Love it. That's cool. Okay, so with kind of the second half of this one, this show is all about changing the tide. Mm-hmm. So how is Lightning changing? It's Bitcoin and Lightning being a gravitational force that's really moving power from, oppressive authoritarian governments more towards individual sovereignty. And so I see you guys doing a lot with that. So I want to kind of make the second half of the show a little bit in that direction. So tell us about the benefits of Voltage combined with BTCPay Server. Because from what I understand, Voltage is basically they're hosting nodes, but in a non-custodial way. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. To go into the platform a little bit, like we have, we host LND nodes and, everything is essentially encrypted to the password that you set on the node. So we don't have access to see, kind of what's happening in the node. And then additionally, like LND has like remote signing now. So you can do remote key management. You can get really fancy with how you do, keys and things like that. But essentially, yes, like we don't have access into the funds on the node. And then especially, in hosting BTCPay Server, kind of the way that that's set up is it's basically a cold, not cold storage, but there's no hotkeys on the BTCPay server itself. So, if we essentially got some kind of court order to shut you down, we can't freeze your money. We can just stop you from like accepting new money. But we could never like actually, take your funds from you or anything like that.
Okay. So that's helpful. Maybe the donations towards the Canadian truckers could have been managed a little bit better than had they been managed for Voltage.
Yeah, that whole situation is just very crazy. I think that's probably a good word to use there. But we had like kind of after the fact of like the initial like fundraising stuff, we had at least a person or two like come and set up crowdfunding pages on us to receive, I think, like help for like legal donations and things like that. And so we had a little bit of trickle from those. But I mean, yes, when you compare it to the GoFundMe that got all of their money just seized. It's a perfect example of how little control you have in the traditional financial system. I mean, they're freezing bank accounts, they're freezing money in your GoFundMe, they're cutting off credit cards, whatever. You really have zero control over anything in the traditional financial system. And coming to Voltage of BTCPay servers, all of these things, it does give you that freedom where there's nothing that Voltage can do to take your funds away from you, and that's exactly how I want it. I don't want to be in that position, right? And so it's incredible the amount of what it can enable for individuals, and I think that it's this whole trucker thing especially has really opened, I think, a lot of people's eyes into what is possible with the legacy financial system. I think that a lot of people kind of thought, that'll never happen. They would never do something like that. And it's wow, it's here. They are freezing your money because people are honking their horns. This wasn't even a violent thing. This was just a peaceful protest, and they're freezing money. And it's just insane. And so I think it just is a perfect use case for why Bitcoin exists. Why do we have this? Why is it important? And that shows you exactly what it is. Which is a final comment that I'll stop on the subject. But I think that these people, like Justin Trudeau and all these people, are just the best salesmen for Bitcoin that could ever exist. Elizabeth Warren, all these people they're just selling it just so well. I mean, what their actions are enabling just broader Bitcoin adoption.
Because the question is always going to be, should you be subject to a financial system? Should everyone be subject to a financial system where at any point anyone's whim in power can take your money away? Or should we have this decentralized network worldwide that allows you to retain control of your funds, no matter what people in power think about you? Mm-hmm. So it's been interesting to see that. Bitcoin, we've been talking about this in not just Bitcoin, but metals folks have been talking about that, and all that. Yeah. But Bitcoin really, I think, enables that in a way that nothing ever has been able to again be. I don't want to say be your own bank, because it's a different paradigm than a bank. Yeah. But have sovereign control of your money.
Yeah, no, I mean, completely. And I think that even the people that are into metals and things like that, it goes back to how are you going to, in a world where you're unbanked, where you don't have the traditional financial system, I mean, how are you going to transact with gold or things like that? It's not realistic. And so I think that this is the perfect solution to that issue, that is unconfiscatable as well as usable.
Yeah. Speaking of unconfiscatable, I was watching your sponsor chat with Tone on his channel last week, and you mentioned too a little bit about how Voltage is non-KYC. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Could you unpack that a little bit too for people? Because again, the whole thing here is people are, and what the Canadian truckers issue has brought is people are worried about privacy. Mm-hmm. Do I have to do the KYC process? So that could be a really interesting conversation point here.
Yeah, we don't do KYC. I mean, to sign up as an email and password, and that really comes back to us not having control of your funds. So we can't really comply with any AML laws, because we can't really see what's going on. So there's nothing for us to kind of report or enforce there. So we're non KYC, and we want to keep that as long as possible. I mean, we don't have any plans to switch out of that, but regulatory environment is changing by the hour essentially. But yes, I mean, we definitely want to privacy and people's private data and things like that are kind of top of mind for us, and we definitely want to enable people to get the most experience with as little amount of data given that's possible. And so that's always what we'll strive for in our platform.
So question for you around the privacy subject, because there's things popping up in my Twitter feed about maybe FUD around Bitcoin privacy. Mm-hmm. all of a sudden Monero is coming back into the conversation on my Twitter feed around, Monero's private, Bitcoin's not. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, so for Bitcoin specifically, like, sure, it's maybe less private than a Monero or something like that, but those things are being worked on, I would say. And one, like things like Taproot and whatnot, like it's kind of like a slowly but surely thing where, Bitcoin is very intentionally slow in some of those developments because, I mean, we want to get it right. Like we obviously Bitcoiners see Bitcoin as like this big global network, and we can't just be pushing changes like left and right. So we need to be very methodical about it. And so that's why maybe it's a little bit slower, but there's work being done to increase on-chain privacy. And there's tools out there that help with that. And then additionally, Lightning is even more private than on-chain Bitcoin, and that is increasing as well. I mean, I think that it's been very reassuring looking through or just seeing how many people are very focused on privacy on Bitcoin, and Bitcoin and the Lightning Network. And so I think that Bitcoin is probably even like more, if you use it in the right ways, is more private than people think today. Obviously, there's ways to not be private on the network too, but so I think that privacy is actually pretty good right now. But there's a lot more that we could be doing, especially on like the Lightning Network and things like that around payment hash descriptions. There's a lot of things that can be improved upon that I think will be happening over time. It's just those are big hurdles to overtake.
Yeah. As far as like Taproot is concerned, that's going to affect both the Bitcoin and Lightning Network, from my understanding. Yeah. Could you explain how that is going to lead to greater privacy on both networks?
Yeah, I think that the one of the big privacy advantages is being able to combine signatures. So doing like a multi-sig essentially doesn't always. I think if I understand it correctly, it doesn't show up as like really a multi-sig on the base chain. So right now, pre Taproot, you can see in a Bitcoin transaction if it was for a Lightning channel or not, or have like a pretty good knowledge of like if this is for a Lightning channel or not. But with Taproot, you can basically obfuscate that, so a transaction looks like a transaction. You don't know if it's just a regular payment, if it's a Lightning channel, what. So it greatly helps in people, and you creating channels and being able to trace funds into channels in your node and things like that. So that's a big privacy improvement, as well as it can bring some optimized like fees and things like that for just smaller on-chain footprints. So those are really the biggest privacy enhancements for Taproot. And then when you think about the privacy enhancements on like Lightning itself, like PTLCs are a big privacy enhancement. So with that, I will try to get too in the weeds, but right now there's HTLCs on the Lightning Network, which is essentially a hash time lock contract that it is what the payment is that is being made across the network. And there is enhancements in kind of switching up how that works a little bit to where you don't know any point along the path of like where a payment is going or from or anything like that. So it kind of obfuscates payment details more so in the network. So if someone is trying to like create a node, sit in the middle and try and just gather data on where payments are going to, it makes that much harder.
Which there's already conversation of potentially chain analysis and other of these chain analysis companies trying to dig into the Lightning Network like they have on chain. So these are coming seemingly at a really nice time.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. It's the chain analysis thing was really interesting to me. I'm just like, I mean, I have questions that I will never get the answer to of like, why, like, how are they doing it? Like all of these things, are they just like creating a bunch of nodes in the network and just trying to gather details? Like, because it is more private than, on chain, you can see a UTXO and kind of trace where it came from, where it was and things like that, where Lightning is just very, very different. And maybe it's even just they're just trying to signal that they're looking at the Lightning Network, but they aren't, what they can actually do is far less than what they claim or something like that. I don't know, but really, I mean, at the end of the day, you're right that it's a good time to be thinking about these privacy preserving enhancements. and they're definitely needed. And I think that they will come. It's just a matter of kind of when and how and things like that.
Cool. Yeah, that all remains to be seen. But because I think really in the Bitcoin ecosystem and community, some people would say there's no Bitcoin community. I disagree. There's a community of people who use Bitcoin, and so I think the big conversations in that are coming around, like how much will financial authorities, governments be able to dig in and gather data. Obviously, it seems like they can, but to what extent? So.
Yeah, I think that the big like hole in that is just the on and off ramps to the exchanges and things like that, where you're fully KYC, you buy Bitcoin, and then you transfer that Bitcoin out into an address. Well, like that address is tied to your identity because it came out of this exchange, and so that's the hole where they're gonna kind of track you. And so it's important to have good on-chain privacy by doing coin joins and things like that that can help. And so it's just kind of being cognizant of I think that's where the real problem exists.
Yeah. And how does Lightning potentially solve for someone who's gone through, let's say, a KYC exchange to become a bit more private, or does it not?
It yes and no. It could, and that if you say you bought a Bitcoin on an exchange and then you're wanting to withdraw that into cold storage or something like that, you'd probably incur some fees, but you could create a Lightning node and deposit all the money to the Lightning node, close the channel, get your funds back on chain, and then just delete the Lightning node. So there's not really and especially with Taproot in that scenario, they wouldn't be able to hopefully trace your on-chain footprint. So that's maybe a little bit complex, but I think that with the Lightning network kind of being more inherently private, and then nodes can kind of be, especially on Voltage, can be kind of created and destroyed as needed. So I think that could pose some interesting solutions to kind of creating a node just for the use case of just withdrawing from an exchange and then deleting the node after. That could be a use case. There's obviously fees with the channel opens and things like that, but it could be worthwhile, if privacy is a priority for you.
I was going to say, what's the cost of privacy in your mind, right? That's always the question. Okay, so maybe just to kind of transition here towards Graham, you've been in Bitcoin a while, and you've seen this space grow like crazy. You've contributed to that. What are some things that maybe someone who's new to Bitcoin now, if they're watching this show, they need to know that maybe even someone who was new to Bitcoin like me several years ago didn't necessarily need to know comparatively?
Yeah, I think, what I think that everything that we've talked about privacy is important. I think that it's important for people to understand both privacy and self custody. When I first got into Bitcoin and back in 2012 or so, it wasn't really. It was kind of almost self custody was a normal thing because there wasn't that many exchanges, or there wasn't really a lot of opportunity to not do self custody. There's local Bitcoins where you just literally exchange Bitcoin with another person. That was kind of it. But now there's exchanges all over the place. There's a lot of different ways to kind of store your Bitcoin. And so I think that that maybe got lost a little bit along the way. And so I think that it's just important to understand your privacy and having control over your Bitcoin, because we saw in Canada with the truckers and things like that, if your Bitcoin is on an exchange, it's not yours. They can just shut down your account whenever you want. So that's always top of mind. And I think that when I start talking about stuff like that with new people, I think it gets very, very overwhelming very fast of I'm so scared, I'm going to lose all my money. What do I do? And so I think that there's a lot of solutions out there like Casa and Unchained and people like that really kind of help you along the way. So I think that if you're feeling overwhelmed by that, seek out, some help. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. But I think that it's definitely important enough for people to learn, right? I think that it's not something that, there's people that say like, newbies should keep their coins on exchange because they're probably safer than them doing it themselves. I think there's some validity to that, but you're also at the risk of it being taken away. So there's a balance, and I guess to kind of like hit the point home, just try and educate yourself on how Bitcoin really works, how to be private and how to hold your own funds, and just educate yourself in that way so you can be ready to kind of take on your own funds when it's time.
Yeah, and there's so many free and open resources on how to do that. So, but yeah, that's cool. I think I've seen that too, where so many people, like for instance, the Coinbase. It was interesting, the Coinbase Super Bowl commercial, because I was at a Super Bowl party with a bunch of friends who I've been talking about Bitcoin for years, and they never pulled the trigger. And then all of a sudden the QR code is going in that, and they're like, I want my $15 in free Bitcoin. And I was like, and it actually allowed me to say, you know what? It's not free Bitcoin. Like, you're paying a couple of costs to that, one of which is like your privacy. So it actually was an interesting orange pill discussion that I had not had yet, or had been able to have, and talking about like, well, you don't want to keep it on Coinbase. And some were like, well, I just want to cash out. And it's like, okay, cash out for $15.
Yeah.
But for others, it was like, if you're really going to keep this, let me share with you how you can keep it safe, because Coinbase is a regulated financial institution that could freeze your funds at any time. So that was an issue.
Yeah. And I think that it's like, I think that goes also with like, it's just incredible the amount of people that are getting more and more interested in Bitcoin. Obviously, like, It always goes with the price action, right? Whenever it's at all-time highs, everyone's a Bitcoiner, then it drops, no one's a Bitcoiner, that kind of thing. But just in general, the amount of questions I get, just from people that I'm hesitant to even tell people that I work in Bitcoin, because as soon as I say that, they're like, what NFT should I buy? What do you think about Dogecoin? It's like, no. Like, you don't understand. But then on the flip side, it opens up a conversation that almost everyone kind of has questions or like wants to know more or is interested. And that's a newish thing, where it used to just be like, wow, what's that? That sounds crazy. So I think it's just really cool to see the amount of interest that we've started to get in the Bitcoin community.
Yeah. Maybe to land the plane a little bit then here, Graham, this has been an awesome discussion. What has been the biggest development in your mind on the Lightning Network, and maybe just in Bitcoin over the past year? And over the next year, what are some things you're excited about?
Yeah. Well, I think this probably sounds a little bit cliche to talk about, but I think the value for value thing that we talked about, previously, has been one of the bigger developments over the last year. Like, you think a year ago, March 2021, Sphinx Chat was kind of like, I don't want to say at its peak, but like, it was like, that was kind of like the new thing. Everyone's doing podcasting 2.0 and stuff like that. And so like, that has carried through now. And it's like, it's almost like a big use case for the Lightning Network. Drove a lot of adoption, got a lot of new people involved. And it really kind of like stressed the system in terms of like how, what's working and what's not inside of the network. And so I think that was, one of the bigger developments over the last year of really just kind of like use case validation around like Lightning and programmable money and all of these things. It was like a real, people are actually using it for that. And like, it's really cool. We've learned a lot from that. So I think that's been one of the biggest developments over the last year. And then, looking forward, it'll be a selfish answer, but I'm really excited about what we're working on at Voltage. I think that, things that we're going to be announcing in Bitcoin 2022 and things that we'll just be kind of rolling out and working on through this year I think they're going to be substantial. I think they're going to really help the Lightning Network and really push the network forward in a lot of different ways. So, I'm really excited about what we're building and being able to share it and push it out there to the market.
Yeah, I'll be excited to hear those announcements. I was trying to rib Bobby a little bit and be like, "Hey, is there anything you can announce on here?" He's like, "Nah, just wait for the conference."
Yeah.
And you guys, you'll also be at Bitcoin Day. Is that right? The Bitcoin Day in Kansas City?
No, I'm going to just. I'll be talking at one of the Bitcoin meetups in Kansas City. I don't know if they overlap or not, but I think it's just a meetup.
Okay, cool. Well, that's awesome. Supporting the local meetups too is super important. So
yes, that's been super fun to go to. Like, I mean, I went to like a Nashville one a couple weeks ago. Austin, like all of these little Austin's not really little anymore, but all of these meetups around the world are always super fun to go to.
Yeah. Okay, so where can people go, Graham, to find you, Voltage, plug away, whatever you want to plug here?
Yeah, sure. For anyone that wants to check us out, you can find us at voltage.cloud. So that's our website. On Twitter, we're voltage_cloud. So check us out. Feel free to reach out and get more information on what we do and how we can help you. And then I'm G Krizek on Twitter, so that's GKRIZEK. Send me a message. Love to help and meet other Bitcoiners. So yeah, I just want to push Lightning forward. So let's make it happen.
Heck yeah, man. Well, I'm excited for you guys in the continued growth, excited for your big announcements at Bitcoin conference, and down the road here, would love to have you back on, Graham.
Yeah, that sounds great. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Man, that was an awesome interview with Graham. I think he had a lot to say around value for value, privacy, the importance of Bitcoin privacy, and why the FUD is probably overblown. Of course, pointing out that the KYC exchange route is the big gaping security hole and privacy hole. And so, even potentially Voltage being able to help you, stop the tracing pathway of your KYC exchange coins if you have them. So that was an interesting part of the show, that if you have KYC coins, you may want to consider spinning up a couple Voltage nodes and then closing them not long after, Lightning nodes, I should say. So very awesome to hear after the fact. Graham said he's views the show, he watches the show, so awesome to have that support as well. And when it comes to the actual support of this show, please send boosts through Fountain, Breeze, any value for value enabled podcasting app. Now, why that's important, there are no ads for this show. I haven't taken any money from any sponsors. Part of that is just to be able to bring on who I'd like, dive into the conversations that I'd like, and that is really where as Dare Gigi said on a recent Podcasting 2.0 episode, the free speech protocol of Podcasting 2.0 on top of the free speech money, Bitcoin on Lightning, that's the power that it allows for free speech and inquiry. And so I'm very excited to be a part of that, excited that Voltage does quite a bit to help provide infrastructure for that environment is very cool. And that was why I was so excited to have him on today. Please subscribe to the show, send boosts, send comments or questions. I have had questions from, for the next guests of shows, also for guests that have come on. I do live tweet those questions, and I have had founders like Keon at Stacker News who have answered. And so that's really exciting. Let's just continue to grow this space, and let's keep changing the tide towards greater freedom and prosperity worldwide. Till next time, don't do anything I wouldn't do.